You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru atışını kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Yuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve
Hello, Black Eagles. Welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. We are coming off of an historic win in a way because Beşiktaş, with the victory in Kayseri, have secured 16 points out of the first seven. No, sorry, that's not wrong. That's wrong. They have secured 16 points out of the first 6 games. I was going to say 7 games. So that's 16 out of a potential 18. That hasn't happened since 2003, 21 years ago under Mircea Lucescu at the beginning of the 2003-2004 season. So, a good start to Gio van Bronckhorst's league career as a Beşiktaş coach. Of course, we're coming off of a rather painful loss on the midweek against Ajax, which we talked about at length on Friday. But now we're here to talk to you about something more positive. Before we get to that, however, my name is Kaan Bayazit. As always, I am joined by the one, the only Mr. New York City himself, Sinan. Sinan, it's just you and me today, buddy. Just like the old times.
The old days. And you know, it's funny that you just literally mentioned, hey, look at that, it's our 300th episode. Boy, lots of interesting news coming in fast and furious. It's funny you mentioned the Mircea Lucescu era because I feel like that's when we became friends, so we're marking 20 years of friendship, ironically too. But then, yeah, that's probably, I think, for people our age, sort of a romantic era of Beşiktaş football, right? Like it was kind of I don't want to say when I fell in love with the club because obviously I was already following them to some extent, but that was like when we were given hopes and aspirations, right? We saw our team win a title, like convincingly, playing beautiful football. So it's it's worth noting, I guess, that we've matched that for the first time in 21 years because we've had some pretty good seasons since then too, right?
For sure, but also coming off of the worst season in the past 25 years and then going into the best league start in the last 21 years. That's pretty impressive and a feather on Gio van Bronckhorst's cap, I think. Before we get to that match though, Sinan, there's a couple of things. Of course, this is our 300th episode. Sinan and I have been doing this since 2018. We've been at it for 6 years now, 300 episodes under our belt. I think we are the longest running English podcast on anything Turkish football related. Of course, Ahmet Bob Turgut does his Turkish soccer podcast, but I think when it comes to club podcast, anything like that, I know there's a Galatasaray podcast out there, but
the Lion's Den, right?
Yeah,
but they've even said that we inspired them, so
they did, but I don't think they've done a lot of episodes the last year. Actually, I think they kind of it's difficult to keep this going, Sinan.
Indeed.
We found that out at times. Sometimes it's difficult to keep the motivation going, especially when you're not really you're doing this as a labor of love. You're not really making any money off of it. I mean, we are making a little bit of money now thanks to the Patreon. So if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/Beşiktaş podcast. But of course, that's still very that's still peanuts. So sometimes it's difficult to keep the motivation going. For us, definitely, this YouTube era has given us a boost. We're going strong. We started this like 4 months ago, I think, and we're growing the channel. Hopefully, we can get our follower or subscriber count up to 500. That's our next goal. That's 500. We're at 360 now. So if you are watching and you have not subscribed yet, please do so, click the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you will be notified of any future episodes coming up and any new videos. Talking about new videos, our Eintracht Frankfurt preview with Kevin Hatchard, the Bundesliga commentator for the English feed of the Bundesliga, is up. It's been up since yesterday, actually. I recorded that on Friday. People on Patreon have been able to watch that since Friday because obviously our Patreon members get early access. It's only been a few days, but they got early access. They got to see it first. Now you can watch it on YouTube. Go and check that out once you've watched our live feed on the Kayseri Sport game. Then another thing, because it is the 300th episode, Sinan and I have a little surprise, and I already kind of gave it away in the tweets and all that, but I have a code for EAFC 25 to give away. However, little caveat, and I do apologize in advance, it will only be the Xbox version of the game this year. Next year, I'll try and make sure that we can cover all platforms. I was a little late, behind the scenes peek. This is actually my copy that I get every year from EA because I do some work for them. Freelance work for them, and they give you a free copy. I don't really play the game anymore nowadays, so I usually just give it away to friends and family. But this year I'm giving it away to our viewers. I was a little late to choose the platform, and if you select PlayStation, you have to give in the country of residence of the whoever is going to redeem the code. So I was a little late, so I could only get the Xbox One because that's free. You can just give that to anyone. So if you are somebody who games on the Xbox, you're interested in getting a copy of EAFC 25 and you haven't gotten one yet, leave a comment below on the video, type Xbox and maybe a fun little message, and I'll pick somebody at random who gets that code sent to them in the next week or so. All right, Sinan, let's get to the game. Kayseri Sport away. How were you feeling about this game going into it, coming off of the Ajax game? We said it on Friday. We needed to see a reaction from the team. Do you feel like we did?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. It's funny. All right, so first let me answer the first part of your question. Going into the match, I was first of all very excited. Coming from the United States, where all weekend long you have all these gringos talking about American football, getting all hyped up about their local. Like I'm sitting here kind of like, waiting for my team to play. So I was super hyped, but also nervous. And I think you discussed this previously, Kaan, but Kayseri Sport, despite not getting results, to be fair, they've played some pretty decent football, and you could I think make the argument that they've probably earned some points that they maybe didn't get because of boneheaded plays and lacking individual talent, which I think we saw a little bit of for sure in our match. A little spoiler there, but so yeah, I was nervous, and I think given all the pressure on our guys, to come back and perform, given how poor they were against Ajax. Yeah, I felt like the burden of expectation could be a little heavy, right? And the pressure of needing to kind of come out and do something. So, I was obviously hopeful. You always want Beşiktaş to get 3 points against anyone they come up against, even our rivals, right? Even sides that maybe it will be difficult to get 3 points. You kind of hope for, but so. In this case, Kayseri Sport, given I think they were in like 17th place going into our match. I think, you definitely feel like we need to get 3 points here. But you also know, like, given all the factors, right? A, it's a Super League where anything can happen. B, we've got a lot of pressure on us. So, yeah, just nervous, hopeful, all of that. And then what was the second part of the question, Kaan? Did I feel like they
whether they showed a reaction
the way they should have? Yeah.
Yeah, whether you think they showed, whether do you think they rebounded from the mental blow they suffered undoubtedly on Thursday, and I think that was evident personally. I think you could tell, especially in the first half.
Yeah, they were really apprehensive. I mean, interestingly, so I think they came out pretty well to begin. Not well, but pretty well. They were creating a couple chances. I think, if I recall, Rashica was actually quite active early on, but he found Rafa Silva in the box in I'm going to say like the 15th minute, I think. Sharon Dur had that lovely ball that Immobile let run for Mucci, and then Mucci skied it, So we were looking kind of good. They had a couple chances too, though, and they looked especially dangerous on the counter. And that's where, it's ironic. Rashica was active going forward, but showing some weakness going backwards, right? His positional awareness as a right wing back. We should probably talk about lineups and stuff too, Kaan.
We will, yeah. Just getting your first thoughts to begin with, and then we'll get into the lineups.
Yeah, sorry, this turned into too long of a thought. But yeah, so basically, Rashica gave and took away, right? And so they were getting 2 easy opportunities on the counter, and then for a while, we kind of hit the snooze button. And so I would say that our like literal reaction, like how we came out, left a little bit to be desired, and then kind of fell apart quickly. But if you look big picture at the whole match as a response, I think you could probably make the argument that we did respond pretty well in the end. But it took some tweaking and obviously some halftime adjustments, and maybe we have to give credit to our coach again for that. We'll talk about that too. But yeah, so that's my answer. Not quite the literal response, right out of the gate that you would have hoped for, but yeah. In the end, they figured it out. They gave us a good reply.
Let's have a look at the lineup, because you already alluded to it. And it was kind of a makeshift lineup for sure, because Masuaku went into this game suspended. But then Svensson as well, turns out he was ill and couldn't travel with the team. He had initially been included in the squad, but he did not travel to Kayseri with the team. I was still holding out a little bit of hope, honestly, that he would travel with the team, but it ended up not happening. And we saw the first glimpses of Rashica at right wing back, something we had been talking about, fantasizing about a little bit over the summer, and then never really came to fruition. It looked like it was going to be something we were going to try, but then it didn't happen. It did happen yesterday, and like you said, he was a little unwary perhaps. Ultimately, going forward, goal, he gave an assist and he won a penalty, so he was definitely active. But in the first half, I think in particular, you could really notice that he was kind of like a fish out of water. He wasn't 100% sure on what to do. He looked a little nervous, and understandably so, I think, if that's the first time in your career you play in a position like that. So, do you want to go over the lineup, Sinan? Because it's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start with them, because there's actually some interesting names there too. Mm-hmm. Starting with their goalkeeper, who we're not convinced isn't related to you, Kaan.
He is actually from the Netherlands.
There you go.
Yeah, who know? He might be related to me, actually.
Maybe there is like a second cousin. I don't
know, because most people whose last name is Bayazit, their name is actually written with an E. So it's like Bayazit. So who knows? Maybe.
But so Bilal Bayazit is their goalkeeper. Joseph Atama and Lionel Carol on their back line. I didn't know Lionel Carol was a central defender.
He's not. He's a left back, but I think they had.
There must be,
the Fetsioranos or something like that. I think he was either injured or Kadrodishi. I'm not sure. So I think it was kind of makeshift. But
they're having some issues, right?
Yeah, I mean they've had an off and on transfer ban for a couple of years now. I think they lifted it because they brought in a couple of players. I mean, look, they loaned Kartal from us, so they must have lifted it to an extent, but they definitely have financial issues. So, they haven't really been able to strengthen their squad properly the last few years. So I think for them it's kind of waiting until they relegate.
And do the best they can.
Yeah, they've been kind of flirting with that for a few years, but they've been lucky with coaches like Chadash, who have been able to keep them afloat with very limited material, so to speak.
And it's a shame, I remember not that long ago, somewhere between when we were talking about, Mircea Lucescu leading us and now,
Yeah.
But Kayserispor became supposedly a prominent team in the country. They got themselves a very nice modern stadium, which has hosted a lot of national team games. It's a shame that they're not kind of fitting into those shoes that were kind of made for them.
Yeah, in the second half of the 2000s, Kayserispor were a top 5 team and consistently pushing for that top 5 with the likes of Pablo Muche, Mehmet Topuz, of course, Gökhan Ünal.
Yep.
They had some good players back then, and Muche especially was a really exciting player at the time that I always wanted to get to Beşiktaş. Actually, I think he even still plays. I looked him up recently. He was surprisingly young still. He's in his 30s, obviously, but
Yeah, relatively. We're getting older too. But yeah, so to continue, they had on the right side of their defense Gökhan Sazdai, who he's a guy who's a little bit annoying. I wouldn't say he made the list, but he's a physical, kind of annoying defender.
Just
he's
returned
30,
from
so it's
suspension, by the way. He got sent off against Trabzonspor 2 weeks ago, which is where they gave away their 2-0 lead in the Şenol Güneş complex, where they conceded in the 89th and then added time to lose 2 points. And that's kind of been Kayseri's season. They played a fantastic game in Trabzon. They always should have won it, but then they fell apart after the red card.
Kayseri's almost like it's like a warning tale, cautionary tale. That's the word.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then you had Hasan Ali Kaldırım on the left side, which is a throwback for anyone who's been following the Super League over the last few years. And then, of course, Kartal Kayra Yilmaz in the middle of their team, with Mehdi Bourabia up front, who's a slightly dangerous but old Moroccan player, who plays next to Baran Gezek, who's he ghosted. I didn't even see much of him. He's only 19.
Yeah, was a young kid.
He's a hope for them.
Yeah, he's the one that lost the ball to Gedson for our goal, and some consoling by Burak afterwards.
Yep. And then, of course, you've got Ailton Boamorte, the 31-year-old Portuguese right winger who plays opposite Miguel Cardoso, 30-year-old Portuguese left winger, and here's a guy I did not know of until yesterday, Dukins Nasson, 30-year-old Haitian striker, who, because I doubt we'll mention it later, I think he probably had Kayseri's best chance. And it was on a counter that Rashica provided for them, and he just totally didn't. I don't even think they'll get any XG because he didn't even get a shot up.
No, he couldn't get his head on it. I think it was. I think a cross from Cardozo from the left, and
yes, exactly. Yeah,
he should have put it away, and
it bit them in the butt.
Good for us.
But so yeah, and then for us, an interesting lineup, and this is where we get to have a little fun talking about it and whatnot. But obviously, Mert Günok in goal. Gabriel Paulista and Felix Udokai right in front of him, with Milot Rashica as a right wing back, as Kaan and I have both alluded to already, and Emirhan Topçu on the left side. Cher Endur was in the midfield next to Gedson Fernandes, who were both behind Rafa Silva. Interestingly, Ernest Mucci was playing on the left side of the attack, opposite João Mario, and Ciro Immobile played up top to round out our lineup. And what was, I don't know, Kaan. What were your thoughts looking at that lineup initially?
I was definitely nervous. I was already kind of nervous going into before the game. I think I said this perhaps on the last episode, but I wasn't so much worried about the Ajax game. I was more worried about this one because I feel like traditionally we've always struggled in Kayseri. I know the last few years we've gotten a lot of good results there. I think we've only lost once, and I think we've won like 5 of the last 6 outings there or something like that. Or at least close to that, maybe 1 draw in there. But I don't know, Kayseri for me, I guess that stems back from that good period they had in the second half of the 2000s and early maybe 2010s, where I feel like we always really struggled in Kayseri, often dropped points there. and maybe it's a little bit lurking still from that time. But I was nervous, and then of course seeing that lineup, Emirhan as left back. At the end of the day, I think he played a good game defensively, but obviously offensively he didn't contribute all that much. Masuaku, he was terrible on Thursday, and he has had some real off games already this season. In 10 games, he's had a couple of stinkers for sure, but he's also had a couple of really good ones. And when he's on, he's really important, and he contributes a lot to our attack. So him missing was a big miss, but then Svensson, who I consider to be one of the certainties at the back, one of the most, if not the most consistent performer of the team, perhaps even, played this, we said this, on Thursday, on Friday, played his first bad game for us, perhaps, against Ajax. Yeah. And one wonders whether or not that whatever illness he's got was already kind of brewing and he wasn't 100%, because it was very uncharacteristic for Svensson how maybe bad he was. I think he was bad on Thursday, and he, of course, everyone was. He wasn't the only one. Yeah. But not having Masuaku, not having Svensson kind of felt like the perfect storm of what we've been saying all summer, that we don't have depth at the fullback position. And then on top of that, Onur Bulut was also ill. So I guess Svensson and Onur hung out together or something and got each other sick. And looking at the first half performance, honestly, I was wondering whether the entire team was sick or something. Maybe they ate some bad coquette at the muur or something when they were in the Netherlands, or smoked some bad ganja, because
it was laced by Galatas today. No,
it was
lackluster. Not only was it lackluster, but it was disappointingly lackluster, because I think, like we said, we really wanted to see them come out flying high, and even though it started better and then kind of regressed over time. It's not like they were playing particularly well. I mean, look. Initially, they actually were playing decently as far as creating chances, but the problem was that we were also giving away a lot on the counter. And as we were sort of already talking about, a big part of that was Rashica, and I think more specifically to kind of dig into what was going wrong. He has these tendencies as a winger to take risks, to try dribble moves, and he's not always very precise with those. That's sort of a weakness in some ways. And so he often has the ball taken off of him. And the difference where, if you do that as a right winger, you've usually got at least a right wing back behind you, or a fullback, not to mention, maybe a central defender or a central midfielder or whatever, whoever else might be back there. When you're the wing back or the fullback, there's often nobody behind you. And so if you lose the ball, it's like, boom, there goes. And not only that, but I think Cardoso is probably Kayseri's best player, so you're giving their best player kind of free reign down the left side, and he nearly made us pay for that. Well, maybe just once really was the only really good chance. I mean, Boamorte had a couple. He had a couple shots that were probably even counted as being on target, although they were. There's always a defender between he and the goal. Our defense was solid, even though. Rashica was not, positionally, although it was, again, quite good roaming forward. So you take the good with the bad, right? But it was. What was really difficult was, so basically right after Ciro Immobile sent that shot wide, which he really should have put away.
Yeah, that was a 100% chance, I think, and it was I believe Rafa who sent him through on goal, and for me. That kind of felt like, okay, that's why we paid Ciro the big bucks. He needs to score that. That needs to be a goal. It didn't matter at the end of the day, but I think if you're playing like we were playing in the first half, and you get a chance like that, you need to take it, because back in Belgium here in the 2000s, 2010s, when Anderlecht was winning a lot of titles. They often did it without their champagne football, which is what was demanded by the fans. So it was often ugly, but they won, pure business-wise. And sometimes when you're aiming for a title, you have to win games, ugly games. You have to.
Yeah.
You can't always
Yeah.
play well. And I think in this match, our expectations was we want to see a reaction from the team. We want to see them rebound from Thursday. So we want to see hunger. And in the first half, there was very little of that. And sometimes, when you have those difficult games, whether it's because your opponents are good or you're just kind of struggling with yourself, which I think was more the case in this game, then you need your top players to kill off the match with those few moments they're gonna get. And Ciro didn't do that right then and there. And I don't know about you, Sinan, but I think had we played a better opponent yesterday, I think we lose that game. Like if we play Samsun, like if you look at Samsun now, for example, they've got 15 points.
Mm-hmm.
They're in 4th place at the moment. They're phenomenal. They've only lost against us, I think. So they've
on paper, that's our best win of the season, theoretically, right?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously minus the Super Cup, but that's half a game.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But I think if we play Samsunspor yesterday, I think we lose that game, Sinan. I don't know about you, but I really think we were lucky that we played Kayseri. The only team that we could have probably played and gotten away with that first half performance is Adana Demirspor, maybe Antep. Depending on how Antep is going to look now, because I was actually doing some EA work earlier and doing some of their stuff. You remember David Okereke? The guy we were linked with last season? Seriously linked with? He's at Antep now.
How's he doing?
Imagine my surprise. He only just arrived, so I don't even know if he's played already. But
that's crazy.
Seeing some of those signings, on paper, Antep have a really good team. But having watched them against Galatasaray last week, they didn't impress me. And also looking at their form in the league, they don't look too impressive. But on paper, they have a good team. But it was by the skin of our teeth that we actually got to halftime with a 0-0 scoreline, I thought. So
again, I don't want to take credit away from who deserves it, and I think our back line has really solidified, so that there's not really a huge chance that they didn't put away, except for the one, that we talked about where Nasson should have really done better. But they had a lot of half chances, and even though they weren't especially dangerous, and although our back line was handling things pretty well for the most part, I think it doesn't diminish how disappointed I think we should have been, nonetheless, right? Yeah. Because it's not about it's not like they shouldn't have scored. They should have scored anyway. That shouldn't be something you hang your hat on against a side like Kayseri, given all the need for us to turn things around and start performing at a higher level. So, it was one of those performances where, I don't think we were necessarily lucky to hold a draw, just given how poor the quality of the opposition was. But you're absolutely right that almost anyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say maybe Trabzonspor, but then in a way they're kind of not doing great either. And I think if we played the way we did against Trabzonspor, for example, against Samsun, we'd probably lose that one too. They weren't a particularly well settled side either. So no, we're in a way we've gotten a little bit lucky with their schedule of late, although that's in stark contrast to how things were initially, right? We had some really tough sides who Samsun again, right? Samsun was a huge 3 points for us when you look
Definitely.
At it now.
Especially now, but even at the time, I think we said that was a massive win for us because it was going to be one of the most difficult away games. And as the competition is taking shape right now, it definitely turns out to be a correct prediction from us at the time. But I think this is our first quote-unquote easy game. It's the first time we play a team at the bottom of the table. We have only, other than Trabzon, and you have to keep in mind Trabzonspor had 2 games less played. Other than Trabzon, all the teams we faced up until now were teams in the top 10. So we had Samsun, Sivas, and then Antalya. Antalya may have dropped out of it now, I'm not sure, but they were all top 10 sides. and sides with more quality than this Kayserispor for sure.
We'll see how they do against non-Fener side. There's a lot of speculation with Alex being against Fener and all that. I mean, I don't know. It's probably a stretch, honestly.
Well, we beat them as well, so.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter. By the way, real quick, Khan, before I close this up, I wanted to say that you were dead on the nose. Our last 5 matches against Kayseri. Sorry, I have some allergies,
No worries.
stuff. But yeah, in fact, so you mentioned us having some wonky results that give you pause. The last one was a draw in February last season.
Okay.
But I think you actually said exactly this. We'd won all but one of those matches, and one was a draw. And that's exactly right. And the draw was the last one, which gives you more reason to pause and worry. And then right before that last 5-match stretch, our performance against them was a loss in the Cup. Yeah. Remember, in 2022.
Oh,
so,
okay. We also have was it the 3-0 loss? Because we have a 3-0 loss in there, I know, but I thought that might have been the last league game then. It's probably the last league game that we lost against them. So we'll probably have like a 5-game. But yeah, I mean, they've had their financial struggles for the last couple of years, and they've had those transfer bans to deal with and stuff like that. So I think they have become less of an Angstgegner for us, like less of a black sheep. But they definitely have been a very difficult destination for us historically. So that still definitely plays a part in the back of my head. Here, Khan, just to back you up here, in 2017, and we're old enough where this influences us, we drew them 4 times in a row, beat them a couple times, and then that's when you mentioned, in 2020 they beat us 3-1. So there was a period where they were a real thorn in our side, and it was like a 2-year stretch, in fact. So. 2 or 3 year stretch. Yeah, I remember thinking the first season in the National Gunesh, I think it was. I was super happy with the win we got. It was an Ömer Şişmanoğlu goal. Don't know if you remember that.
I remember that. I do, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like a 2-1 win, I think. And I remember how hard fought that was. And yeah, just to give you an idea that if you're a little younger and you maybe only started watching the last couple of years, Kayseri traditionally are a difficult away game for us, but fortunately not so much in the last couple of years, and especially not now. But I mean, we didn't play a great game. Second half was better though, Sinan. Do you want to have a look at the statistics perhaps already, and then we can talk a little bit further about the second half? Let's have a look here at these stats, and I'll let you tackle the usuals, and I'll take the duels and the disciplines.
There we go. So yeah, and this is actually, look, you expect us to have possession as a W in our column for the most part, given how we play. But it's worth noting that they were down multiple goals for much of the second half. So you would have expected them to have taken more of the ball and had more of an effort. So it's actually a credit to us that we kept the possession in our favor, which we did, 52-48. XG 1.89 from us versus their 0.49, just under 0.5. They had 10 shots in total to our 9, and 4 on target to our 5, but 0 big chances. And that speaks to what I was saying earlier, which was like Boa Morte had a couple of chances where he kind of sent in tricklers, but there was always a defender kind of between him and the goal, making it difficult for him. He didn't really get any really solid shots on goal, luckily. I can't think of any huge saves that Merritt made. Can you, Khan?
No, I can't think of a single one, honestly. He had a few really big ones the game before against Eyüp, but in this one, I don't think he was tested at all. But 6 big chances for us does surprise me, though. I have a hard time remembering 6 big chances.
And I'm wondering, so there was the header that Rafa missed that he skied in the first half. There was the Mucci ball, but that was kind of, although Immobile kind of let it run for Mucci, he was still just sort of outside of the penalty box or barely just in, so I don't know if that would count as a big chance. And then maybe the Immobile miss, but he was also, the shot was actually from a bit of distance, so I'm not sure if that, I don't know where those big chances, they must have all been second half. is what I can assume.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
sure enough, I mean, we created a lot more then. But yeah, so 6 big chances for us, 0 for them, 3 missed for us, 0 for them. So it's interesting. We had more big chances than we had shots on target, but I guess that, misses. And this was an interesting stat. We only had 319 passes completed at a 76% rate.
Yeah.
So accuracy with our ball, with our passing, was really rough. And I want to say something about that in a moment. They also completed 283 at a 73% rate, which is about normal for our opposition for the most part. So it's mostly us that seems impacting this match. Again, I'll say more on that in a moment. We each committed 12 fouls. They were offsides 3 times to our 1. And they had 7 corners to our 3. So they were putting a little bit of pressure on at times. I think a lot of that was probably late in the first half. Now, quickly, about our passing numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, even, this could even explain why we only had 52% to the ball. Although, again, I mean, they were down multiple goals. But it was raining, and it was raining quite hard, and I didn't realize the extent to which it was raining. Low quality cameras, whatever it was, for a while. But then every once in a while you'd get a zoom in, and they were soaking wet. Their shirts were dripping. So, the big issue, especially I think you mentioned this, Kaan, although not on air.
Mm-hmm.
This was maybe in the group chat, but Rafa Silva was missing a little bit of his spark, and a lot of it was because he was losing the ball, right?
Yeah.
He was losing the ball in the half, when we were trying to turn for, not necessarily the counter, but to sort of start creating something out of the midfield. And a lot of that, when you think about it now, and consider how hard it was for them to bring the ball down and hold on to it, and the team I coach of girls, our star player, her strength is on the ball, and we played in the rain on Saturday, and we were held scoreless. And I really watched someone who was far and away the best player on the pitch become somewhat ordinary because she couldn't move the ball around with her feet because it's wet, And obviously it's a massive gulf in talent level, but physics are the same, right? If your foot's sliding off the ball, it's harder for you to wrap your foot around it and get a nice kind of clever touch, and that's so much of Rafa's game. So I guess that's one thing is I wouldn't sound the alarms for folks who are worried about our passing being a little less accurate or us not getting as many passes off as we normally would. I think the rain was a huge factor. And I'll just remind everyone again that even though it was 3-0 in a somewhat lackluster match, it should have been 5-0 when you consider, we'll talk about that in a moment, Kaan, right?
We'll talk about that in a moment, yeah.
And so when you think about that, 5-0, it's hard to say it was a bad day, but anyway, Kaan, go ahead with the dual numbers and discipline.
Yeah, before that, I want to pick in on your passing comment. I do agree. There was a lot, especially in the first half, there were so many sloppy passes, so many inaccurate passes. I said this in our group chat, Rafa, for me, his worst game in a Beşiktaş shirt, not really counting the Ajax game. Although in the Ajax game, he didn't get the chance to do that much, but what he did pretty decently in that game, I thought. So I thought this was one of his worst games. And, well, his worst game, actually. Not to say that he was terrible, because he still had some good moments. He had that really good pass to Ciro, and he had that really good shot in the second half as well that Bilal saved. He had his moments, but it wasn't the Rafa that we want to see and hope to see, I think, in most games. The Rafa that dominates games. And then to the dual stats here now. In the first half, I really this is why I'm kind of iffy on stats after the game sometimes a little bit, because in the first half, I really felt like we were losing a lot of duels. We were losing a lot of the second ball. And if you look at these stats now, it does look like we dominated them physically. Because, for example, the duels won 40% to Kayseri, 60% to us, so 35 duels won by Kayseri. 52 won by us. Then the ground duels, that was 41% to Kayseri, 59% to us. Aerial duels, 38% to Kayseri, 62% to us. And then successful dribbles, Kayseri only completed 2 successful dribbles throughout the game. That's an 18th percentile. So they attempted plenty, but only got 2 dribbles off. correctly. And then we have 50% with 5 dribbles successfully. And ultimately, disciplinary-wise, there were 4 yellow cards for the host and 3 yellow cards for us. No red cards, and that's what I want to bring you to next. And this is probably what you want to talk about as well, Sinan. Let's have a look at the first situation. So, this is the wrong one. Let's have a look here. So here's the first situation. This is at 1-0. Bilal Bayazit actually takes this. This is a goal kick. And you see that ball is there, right? He's in a position where a goal kick is supposed to be taken. Technically, it has to be on the line, but we see that the goalkeeper's got a lot of leeway with that. And they can take it anywhere within their goalkeeper box, it seems. Seems to be the rule. I'm actually not quite iffy on that rule. I'm usually a stickler for rules, but that's not what I'm super versed on. But then, what happens is he actually passes it with his foot to Cartagena. And Cartagena does this. Look, he handles the ball, puts it in position, and then takes the goal kick. Now, at the time, Ciro protested straight away. Other players from us, I think, also protested because the goal kick was already taken. It had been taken short. And Cartagena, already on a yellow, mind you, handled the ball in the box. Now, look, I think it would be extremely harsh for the referee to give a penalty and a second yellow card, because I think this is not something these guys are doing on purpose. This is an accident. This is a miscommunication. It's a really shitty penalty to concede, but it's a penalty nonetheless.
Yeah.
Referee has to point to the spot here. If he does not, VAR has to intervene and call him over and tell him, look, this is a penalty. I'm not of the opinion that even though Cartagena is on a yellow, I don't think you have to be an absolute douchebag and an ant fucker and a ridiculous stickler for the rules and send him off. But I do think you have to point to the spot here. This is a penalty every day of the week.
Yeah. It's hard to argue it. I remember seeing it. I think I was the first to mention it in the group because I was just like, I'm pretty sure he just kicked that as if it was a goal kick. Yeah. And then Cardinal kind of picked it up. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
No, and it's like, okay, it was a mistake and all of that, like a boneheaded play, but that doesn't mean he gets the benefit of the doubt. I mean, think about how many goals we allowed because Najib made a mistake or someone, and it's not like, oh no, he gets a do-over because he's an idiot. Like, no,
exactly. Like, mistakes are part of the game. Mistakes get punished all the time. That's just part of it. Sending him off would be very harsh, but this is a penalty, and there's precedent. Last season, between Gaziantep and Çaykur Rizespor, the exact same thing happened. Actually, our current player, Emirhan Topçu, was the guy holding the bag there and handling the ball. And the referee at the time pointed to the spot, gave a penalty, correct decision. And Gaziantep, whether they scored or not, doesn't matter. I don't even remember. But I actually shared the footage on Twitter. I'm not going to show the footage here, but if you want to see it, just go on my Twitter account and check it out. Last season it happened, so there's a precedent. So why does VAR not come in here? Like, okay, the referee maybe didn't see it. That's plausible. It's very plausible. But VAR has to do something here. Like, they were sleeping, Sinan.
I don't even know if it's plausible that the ref didn't see it because he had to signal for the goalkeeper to take the kick, and he already had he'd blown the whistle, which means he had to be looking at some point right at the goalkeeper, and he was kicking it. I don't know, man. This ref was an idiot, and maybe he just saw it and was kind of like, yeah, kind of whatever. Like, hopefully nobody saw that. Yeah. Because it's rough, but I mean, rules are rules. I don't know what to say. Yeah, that was shady.
Like a minute or two later, I think we win a penalty. Anyway, Rasička gets fouled in the box by Atama, and we actually win the penalty. Ciro takes it, scores 2-0.
Justice. Karma.
Exactly. But before that, of course, the icebreaker, the important moment of the game that actually turned the game in our favor was Gedson. High pressure, winning the ball back, mistake by the young player from Kayseri Spor, whose name eludes me now. And Gedson with another brilliant little finish, his 6th goal of the season already in the 10th game. This is the most productive season of his career. His previous most productive season of his career was, I believe, 2017-2018 for Benfica, where he scored 5 goals in the entire season. This season, 6 goals already. Gedson continues to be very important for us. And really, I think he kind of took the pressure off for us, because after that, I felt like we started playing better. Of course, then we win the penalty, make it 2-0. And then, Sinan, something else happens. Another penalty position. And let's have a look at that one. Let's see.
The rugby tackle, I suppose.
Yeah, you can definitely call it that. So here, Atama again, who I think was one of their worst players on the pitch. High ball. He completely misjudges it. Ciro was preying on him to make a mistake. And Ciro beats into the ball. And then Atama just wraps his arms around Ciro when he realizes that he lost control of the ball. Ciro is in between him and the ball now. And you can't see this on this image, because with this image I just wanted to highlight the referee at the bottom there and how perfect of a view he has of this play. Because if Atama doesn't do this, Ciro only has to hit that ball and it's a 100% goal chance. Maybe Bilal saves it. That's possible. But there's nobody in between Ciro and the goalkeeper right now. So this is a 100% goal scoring opportunity. Not to mention that he could also just lay it off to whoever's coming in there. I don't know who that is. That's maybe Rafa or Sebi. I'm not sure. But it's a 100% goal scoring chance. This is a penalty and a red card. There's no doubt about this. One of our friends, Ege, for some reason, thought it was soft. And I'm like, what are you smoking? Like, this is the definition of a penalty. Like, there's no...
He is from Amsterdam. It's worth noting, this Ege fellow.
Yeah, but...
No, look, dude. The thing that really pisses me off the most, when I was watching this thing live, and like, first, my mouth was agape because I was in awe. And it was like, oh my... Like, the ability that Ciro had to sort of, like, be patient, let the ball bounce, and use his body for positioning... Yeah. To put himself into that position where he basically gave himself a chance on goal. Mm-hmm. And it was so clever. And it was such a, like, intelligent, like, the football IQ was off the charts. And then Atama, like, all he could do was like, wrap himself around. And, like, that was all he could do to get near the ball. And just look. One of his feet is off the ground. Like, he's literally, he's like,
it's judo.
He's just putting all of his weight in onto the, like, all Ciro can do is fall forward. And if you look at his teammate, I don't know who that is, the guy who's trailing the most, you can see he's got a look of, like, dejection already as he's approaching.
Yeah, the third guy there. Yeah, he's already like, oh my god. He's...
Oh, damn it. He's already, you could see, he's like, you know, his chest is dropping.
His body
he's
language,
like,
you're right. Yeah, I didn't even notice that, but you're 100% right. It's almost like conceding a goal, like,
yeah,
you know, like,
damn it, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. And I was certain they were going to give this, Sinan, because right at the other end, so he does not give this in real time. And the thing what I didn't notice at the time, but now, of course, with this image, I'm illustrating this. He is looking straight at the situation. He has the perfect view. Like, you cannot explain to me how he does not point to the spot here. There isn't a more stonewall, a more clear penalty that you can give. This is so painfully obvious. And it's, of course, you know, it's 2-0 at this point, and maybe this guy is like, oh, you know, if I give a penalty, I have to send the guy off. I don't give a fuck, dude. This is a penalty and a red card. What is he doing? The defender is completely clowning. He should always get a red card. This is a Barish goal chance. This is a 100% goal scoring opportunity. You're literally robbing us of a goal. And he doesn't point to the spot. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so the ball goes to the other side of the pitch. And he actually gives a penalty to Kayserispor. Like, within 20 seconds, the ball's on the other end. Felix Udukai goes up with a high boot, kicks Paulista in the face. Poor Paulista.
Yeah.
And he points and he gives a penalty for dangerous play, because I understand why he gave a penalty there. When I looked at that in real time, and even in the first replay, I was like, oh yeah, that's a penalty, high boot, dangerous play. But in my mind, it was like, it doesn't matter if it's a penalty or not, because VAR's going to come in, and they're going to tell him to give a penalty on the other side, because all of this doesn't matter, because we had a penalty before that, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So, then you see the replay, and then you see actually, oh, you know what? He actually didn't connect with the Kayseri player at all. He only kicked Paulista in the face. So this is actually not a penalty.
And he hit the ball first, too, which was the kind of, I think, made it impossible to call.
Yeah, but I think that doesn't really matter, because his boot is so high, so it's always dangerous play. If he hits the Kayseri guy, that's a penalty for sure. But then, it takes a while. You see that he's talking to VAR. You see that he's, having contact with VAR. So I'm still fuming at this point. I was proper raging. Like, I could not believe we did not get a penalty. Like, we should have always gotten a penalty. And I'm like, still fuming. But then as he's talking to VAR, I'm like, okay, they've come to their senses. They'll call him over. And then they call him over to the screen. And I'm like, oh, we're going to get a penalty. This is great. And they don't even show our position. They go straight into the Kayserispor position. And I'm like, what are they doing? Are they showing him this first, and will they show them our penalty later? But that doesn't make any sense, because our position was first, so he needs to look at that first, see if that's a penalty, yes or no, which the answer is of course yes, and give that. Like, the preceding phase always takes priority. So I'm like, are they seriously not gonna give this? What is this?
And what's crazy, Kaan, is like, when they do the VAR, when someone scores against Galatasaray, or Fener sometimes, but typically Galatasaray, they're looking 3 moments before the goal, and they'll often find, oh, there was a foul in the build-up, like the way they got the ball, like 4 passes before the goal was shady, and that we're taking it off. Sorry, Galatasaray's still ahead. And it's like, literally, I think there was maybe 2 moments that led, like, from the penalty on our end to going to the other end and creating the penalty. So there's not the notion that somehow like there's too much has occurred since that other penalty shot. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And it was literally like 3. I think the clear off of that, the pass upfield, right, led to the scrum up front, which led to the penalty.
It was literally
like 2 passes.
End to end. Yeah, it was like from their box, the penalty position, into a long ball, I think, and then penalty position on the other end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that weird little scrum. Yeah, and so I'm with you, man. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. And once again, so now at this point we should be up 4-0 rather than 2-0, right? And then imagine they gave them that penalty and it's suddenly 2-1 instead of 4-0.
Imagine, and then exactly. Then you get some spicy end of the game. Of course, look, I think there's a little flaw in thinking, okay, we should have had 2 more penalties, so it should have been 5-0. We do have to say, right after the penalty, we don't get the Carla Kaira position. We do win the penalty for Rasicka. So, probably the match would not go the same way, right? Like, that, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't happen like that. So, I think that was, like you said, justice. Like, instantly, maybe they realized their mistake or whatever, and then saw that and was like, okay, I'll just point to the spot now. That was a clear penalty as well on Rasicka, so it's not like it was a compensation call or anything. And then also, after this non-given penalty for Ciro, like, almost straight after the disallowed penalty for them, Ciro scores a wonderful header. So it's like, it probably would have ended 3-0, 4-0 maybe, I don't know, but maybe if we had gotten that yeah, I don't know. I don't think necessarily that the scoreline would be much different. The problem is that, like, this is not the first time. Like, last game against Ayoub as well, we were talking about it, of course, the last episode. You know, we did get the penalty in the 90th minute or the 89th minute, but we should have had 2 penalties before that. Like, very obvious ones. Not as, I mean, like, look, the Immobile one here, that was like the most outrageous penalty not called this season. Not just for Beşiktaş, but just in general, I think. That was just like the most outrageous one. But it's becoming more and more a team that, yeah, we do get penalties. This was our 3rd penalty already this season. But we probably should have had 6 or 7 already. And that's not even 50-50s. You know, like, these 2 are 100% penalties. Last week, the Micho bump on Ciro is a 100% penalty. And which other position? Then there's the ones on the corner. So that's 4 penalties plus 3. That's 7, right? So we should have already had 7 penalties this season. And then you have the 50-50s, the ones where, you know, Ciro against Trabzon, where, you know, Savic is kind of like hugging him in the box. And then Paulista last week, I think against Ayoub as well on a corner.
Yeah, the tackle.
Those are 50-50s. You know, those types of situations happen on a lot of set pieces and all that kind of stuff. And you see that often that referees don't give those. But I think in terms of really clear cut and dry penalties, we've had 3 obviously. We probably should have had 7 already this season. And we all know how important goal differential can be. We won a title on it 3 years ago. So I hope it doesn't end up mattering at the end of the season, because that would be extremely annoying.
Man, that would, especially if we can count the pens. Like, yeah. And I would even argue that, like, the Immobile one and the Gabriel Paulista one, they're probably more like 55-45 or 60-40 than 50-50, you know? Because if you look at them in a vacuum, they seem like pretty, not obvious calls, but like calls.
I think the Immobile one against Trabzon, like, at the time, like, I'm not a fan of soft penalties, so I'm always like, when it's like a situation where I'm not like, oh, that's fucking Stonewall, I always hold back.
You'll take.
I don't want to be Galatasaray Fenerbahçe who cry for everything, who cry for every little position, right? Like, anything that even smells like a penalty, they want it. Like, for me, a penalty needs to be really obvious. So my first reaction was, he shouldn't be doing that, but... And it just feels kind of like we've, as Beşiktaş fans, we've been conditioned to only getting absolute stonewalls, and even those we don't get.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's kind of like we're doing ourselves, like, you know, I think we need to be a little bit more assertive and just say, no, that's a penalty. It's a penalty. You remember when we got that penalty against last season, the Gedson one, where I think he pulled a guy on a corner. He pulled like a guy's shirt on a corner. And you're like, every corner that gets taken from now until infinity, people are like pulling each other, pushing each other, you know, pulling shirts, whatever. And that's why it was so frustrating last season when that penalty got called against us, because that's one of those positions that happens every single set piece. And then suddenly now they decide to give it. You know,
I mean, that Gabriel Paulista one was far more obvious to me, for example. Anyway, I mean, now we're doing it. We're complaining like we said we shouldn't. But no, I mean, it is. It's frustrating, and let's just hope it's not a goal differential issue.
No, let's not.
Real quick, we should maybe mention that like our rivals are looking a little shaky, so maybe we don't even have to worry about goals. But nonetheless, I mean, we want all the goals we've earned. So it sucks.
Let's talk about that actually, Sinan. How much of a boost did it give you that Galatasaray gave away a 3-0 lead at home on Saturday, coming off of that Ajax game? I don't know about you, but for me, that completely turned my mood.
It really helped that we have, and we've mentioned this here before, we have this group of Dutch fellows in our group chat, and they're super negative for the most part.
I mean, I mean, I don't think
lately about Beşiktaş.
There's one guy who's always negative, and then like Yusuf is almost never negative. I feel like he's always positive, but even
they're going through a phase. He's losing sleep because he's got a newborn child.
Yeah.
He's getting a little cranky. I mean, I'm not going to get into their extenuating circumstances, right? Even Ege has, the poor guy's going through some stuff, but nonetheless, very negative bunch. And one of those individuals, the crankiest of all, who we haven't even said the name of,
it's called Salty.
Salty, the salty boy, was like, this guy, Galatasaray's winning the title, 100%. There's nothing we can do.
My God,
it's over. This whole season is over.
Man.
And then he goes from that to complimenting their board and their transfers and their depth and like, oh, look at this guy's positionality.
Their bench is amazing.
Yeah, he's gushing, like just
God.
wipe that stuff off your chin, man. Like anyway, so he's going for it about how great Galatasaray is, and then like one goal after the other, and he just goes silent in the group chat, and it's. Yeah, that was cathartic for me personally. I could definitely say that.
Definitely, I think it's because obviously I think we're all probably we're all kind of in that same boat where we have a lot of Beşiktaş fan friends, and you always have I feel like we always have those types that are like either really almost closet Galatasaray fans or closet Fener fans. I don't know if it's closet. They're not fans, but they're super. It's like they have this trauma, and they're I don't know, man. It just feels like, and they get so over the top sometimes. It's oh my God, they're so good, and
I know.
I
it's an impulse that I've never understood and I've always hated, because it's one thing to be negative about where you are and to have to contend with, being self-aware and critical and not being too much of a homer. And if you're a real fan of a club, that's something you have to sort of struggle with sometimes, right? When things aren't going well, it's how do you balance your fandom? You love the team, but you have to be real that they're not good. But you can't be so real about that you stop being a fan, right? And start developing these agendas and hating players irrationally and whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's already one thing, right? That struggle is real. But so then to go fully on board, I'm so upset with this that I'm gonna start complimenting my rivals and giving them too much credit.
I mean, you know what? I get it. Galatasaray have started off the season in the league. They should have always dropped points against Hatay. They got a lot of fucking help in that game. That was a freaking scandal. The penalty they got was ridiculous. And they scored a goal that was actually offside. And it's this is VAR. This is VAR era. Okay, the penalty, I understand VAR does not overturn that because that's the referee's judgment call, blah, blah, blah. But then to allow a goal to stand that was offside, in the VAR era, that's not okay. That shouldn't happen. Anyway, but other than that Hatay game, they've steamwalled everyone, right? They steamrolled everyone. Sorry, but who did they play as well? They played Adana Demirspor. They played Rize.
They haven't had anyone.
And Rize, look. I'm a fan of Ilan Palut. I think Rizespor have some really exciting players. I think they do great scouting, all that. But Rize have made a terrible start to the season at the end of the day. They've gotten smacked by both Gala and Fener. I really hope we smack them too. Let's hope they don't find their mojo right before we have to start playing them. But you know what? I mean, I understand. You see your rivals winning all these games. They're 2-0 up after 15 minutes. Every game, they're just coasting to the victory. And then this game, their new big signing, Osimhen, scores twice, and Icardi scores. They're playing a 4-4-2, and it's actually working. You think it's working, at least. the scoreline would suggest that it's working. But then if you're actually watching the game, and yeah, the goals they scored were great, but you could also see Kasım Pasha were hurting them a lot. That man-less in midfield was really hurting them. 4-4-2 will work against the Adana Demirspors of the league. It's not going to work against probably Samsunspor, Sivasspor, stronger teams. It's not going to work against those teams because those teams are going to win the midfield battle and they're going to hurt you. And that was something.
And it's worth noting that Kasım Pasha had a great season last year.
They did.
By the end of the year, they had a weird start.
They finished fifth, and they finished above us. They beat us on the last match day. So,
that's right.
But then, I understand why people are, obviously coming off of last season where Gala had 102 points, Fener had 99 points, and then you see them, brushing aside all these opponents, especially Gala. I understand. They hadn't lost. They won 6 games already. This was their 7th game. They have before this game, their next 5 games, 4 would be at home in the league. So you're like, yeah, they're just gonna keep on winning, aren't they? So then for them to drop points, and then especially in the way they did, being 3-0 up at home and losing it like that, at a time in the 95th minute, I was watching it. I was really happy because we needed that. I think we needed that confidence boost. The fans needed it more maybe than the team even, but I think even the team. I think for the team this will be positive because now we have the opportunity to, if we win our games, to get level with them. So that's.
And here's another thing, Kaan. Here's another thing. And you hope for this, right? And we were on this tip, I think, after Ajax, but it didn't have to be so negative in that it was one game in Europe, which we could learn from, right? And it's when you have a major collapse like that, hopefully, you see your mistakes, you never make those mistakes again.
Hopefully.
So the timing isn't bad if we have a team in place that can kind of react appropriately, and I think we do, for the most part. Second half yesterday gives you that hope again. What you could say for Galatasaray is what happened against Kayseri. Is there a lesson that they could have learned
against Kasım Pasha?
I don't. Sorry, not Kayseri. Kasım Pasha. Yeah, we played Kayseri.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, right? So Osimhen got injured, and it's worth noting he could be out at least 2 matches, or 2 weeks rather. So more than 2 matches, but we don't really care about what they do in Europe.
We do.
And so, losing him to injury.
I do. I think we should care what.
Well, yeah. So I guess that's my question. I didn't watch it so closely. It was in the background, But so yeah, what's the lesson they could have learned? From that match?
I think the lesson they should learn from that is never play a game without Torreira again, because Torreira is without Torreira, their midfield is non-existent defensively, and I think that they learned that the 4-4-2 is not a formation that you should be playing. You can play it, and if you win 3-0, they were 3-0 up, they should never be giving that away. However, I think they learned that 4-4-2 has very specific vulnerabilities. And that was made clear in that game. This is also something they decided to go for Osimhen, and now they have Osimhen and Icardi, who are 2 fabulous strikers, amazing strikers. But in modern football, I
was going to say, maybe they got to bring back Fatih Terim if they're going to play with the 4-4-2.
You can play 2 strikers, but if you're going to play 2 strikers, you probably need to play 3-5-2.
Exactly.
4-4.
That's where I thought Okan Buruk suggested, and I've spoken on this a few times. I don't know that he's a master tactician, and seeing him trot out a 4-4-2 instead of a 3-5-2 or a 3. There's lots of variations on that. It really kind of hammered home the notion to me that he's something of he suffers from a lot of the same things that last generation of Turkish managers has suffered from, right? Tactically limited, maybe not quite approaching the modern game with the right mentality. And I think that's where İlhan Palut is intriguing, or Çaydaş. We have a next gen of coaches who seems to be embracing that. And like the problem with Ilhan Palut is he seems to be struggling to find a plan B. Like, how do you play against a much stronger side, right? We've seen him struggle with that this year. But that's an issue that a lot of sides have, that are weaker.
Yeah.
I have questioned if Okan Buruk is part of that class of younger Turkish managers who's like actually approaching things tactically with the right mentality for this era that we're living in. And I remain to ask. That question remains for me. I guess is all I'll say.
Look, at the end of the day, they won back-to-back titles. They have 19 out of a potential 21 points. They've made a fantastic start to the season. But just for us, it's a great confidence boost, I think, to see that they can still lose points. Because the previous 6 games were kind of like, oof, like, where's this going? Are they just gonna go on a ridiculous 17-game winning streak again? And how far behind are we gonna be come January? Because I do kind of feel like for us, and if anything, the Kayserispor game very clearly underlined the fact that we have a squad depth issue. We saw it against Kayseri, like Masuaku suspended. We have to play a fullback there. Well, we don't have to. We could play Zainuddinov, but Gio prefers Emirhan there. Svensson sick.
We should make note of that, by the way.
Svensson's...
Our boy got his first
He
appearance.
did. And Tayyip Tal had it as well. They both got their first minutes. So Zainuddinov and Tayyip Tal both got their first minutes. But, we were in a precarious position with both our starting fullbacks out. One through suspension, the other one through injury, through illness. And then on top of that, Musrati wasn't there either. And I know a lot of people liked Ndu's performance. But especially in the first half, I really did feel like Masuaku not being there, Svensson not being there, and Musrati not being there, it's disrupting our regular play. Like, we weren't playing how we usually play at all. And I think for us, it's really trying to get as many points as possible, obviously. That's always the goal. But I think for Beşiktaş, our job until the transfer window opens again is try and stay as close as humanly possible. We have Galatasaray at home in the second half of the season. We have Galatasaray coming up in a few weeks now. After the international break, we have Konya at home, and then we have Galatasaray away. So that's a very important game for us, obviously, for them as well. So, we have Antep now away. Super important that we win that again. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's a great emphatic win or if it's kind of almost like an ugly win like this Kayseri game was. But we just need to keep winning matches, and then in January, hopefully, we can fill those gaps that we have in our squad. Hopefully, bring in a quality winger and maybe a fullback, and then I think we have a good chance. But until then, we need to make sure that we stick as close as humanly possible to Galatasaray. Like, if they're 10 points or 8 points behind in January, in front, sorry, like, then our chances are very slim. But right now, we're doing really well. We've made a fantastic start. Hopefully, next week, we win that game against Antep. But first, we have that game on Thursday against Frankfurt. And of course, coming off of the Ajax game, we really need to get a result. And I don't know if you've been keeping tabs a little bit on Frankfurt, but they've made a great start to the Bundesliga this season. It's going to be a tough one. So, we got 2 games and then there's the international break. So what would you be happy with from those 2 matches?
I mean, look, we're going to Gaziantep, which is never an easy gambit, but let's see how let me phrase this. I want 3 points from these 2 matches, and so let me look. 4 points would be ideal. If we could get a draw against Frankfurt, I mean, we are at home.
Yeah, you'd want... I think if we can win that match, I think that would really rectify a lot of the damage that was done.
Like the criticism,
I think if you can somehow win that game against Frankfurt, which will be incredible.
But even a
tough.
draw,
Yeah.
Right, even a draw, I think, could at least get some of those folks to chill out,
maybe,
right? Because, hopefully. Gaziantep, we got to win.
We have to.
It's tough, though, because it's on the road. Like, if we get a point, it's not the end of the world. I guess it's a question of how we get that point, right? If it's lackluster and disappointing. Yeah. But, if they play great at home, like which they're prone to doing.
We've lost a lot of our... I think we've never won against this iteration of Gaziantep. Like, I think we've never beaten them, actually. I don't think we've ever beaten them away. So, I might be mistaken. There might have been one win, actually, maybe when we won the league, perhaps. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely we've suffered a lot of defeats there. So, traditionally, again, difficult away game, but, in a season and with the competition we have, I think we need to win that game. And if we can go into the international break without losing the Frankfurt match and with 3 points in the bag against Antep, that would be perfect. Then we come back after the international break, face Konyaspor at home, hopefully win that, and then we can go to Galatasaray away. And we know from the Super Cup that that they're a team that we should be able to hurt. I'm not saying we're gonna win there, but I'm not even saying we're gonna get a point, but just saying, we need to go into that game with as small as a difference as possible. One question I really want to ask you before we finish up, Sinan, your man of the match, because I kind of want to make that a thing, because we don't do that usually, but your man of the match. Yeah,
we should make more of a deal. Maybe we even need a good graphic, right? For me, it has to be Gedson Fernandes. The goal he scored was entirely him, from the defensive output to the lovely finish. He was just generally all over the pitch. Like, even when things weren't looking great, he's part of the reason why they didn't really have any great opportunities, because he's such a terrier. He's just all over he's just barking at your heels. He's not letting you get too comfy. No, I love Gedson. What he's doing this year is somewhat magical, given what he's done thus far. Prior to this season, I long may it continue. Knock on wood. But for me, he's man of the match. I do want to give a special shout out, and I don't even think he's necessarily second, because I think you could probably say Ciro Immobile, obviously, right? The brace. Rashica had some decent, although he was given too much on the back end. But I do really want to give praise to Cher and Dur, who I thought, came in. He's not necessarily a 6. I think he's typically more of an 8, but he filled in really admirably there. He's great on the ball, man. I don't know how we do it, but I'd love to buy this.
Yeah, I saw you started a petition already to keep him.
Yeah, I think I had a hashtag. I don't remember what it was. Keep Dur, keep Cher.
Anything, I think what he showed is that he should, if there's a player that can start from the starting 11, like get Gedson or Zlati, it should be Ndur, not Onana.
Yeah. Hashtag I believe in life after love. Share. Do you believe in life after love? Anyway.
Yeah.
So yes, I do believe in it. I hope we keep this guy somehow. He's good, man. Yeah. He provides great depth, and he's young, so you could see him being kind of a long-term solution for wherever we need someone next.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Gedson's my man. How about you?
Well, I think it's easy. It's an easy tap in to say the guy that scored the brace, but I'm going to go for Ciro, and that's not just because of his goals, but I thought he actually played one of his better games. He was really involved. He got down to the midfield a lot, helped out, was working hard again like he always does. He should have scored that chance in the first half. He definitely should have. But he made up for that with, I think, the phenomenal headed goal. There's a moment as well in the second half where he does brilliantly in midfield and then sends the ball through to Rafa. And I think if he hits that ball a little less hard, Rafa can get on the end of it before Bilal comes out and collects it. And that's a 100% goal scoring opportunity there then. I really thought Ciro was good. And I also liked how he was the the instigator in that moment with Kartal when he touched, the ball with his hand, how he was the one immediately putting the referee under pressure. No result from it, but I think we need more of that because clearly referees are prone to pleasure. We've seen that from the seminars, the referee seminars, where a ref literally said last season after he gave Galatasaray a cheap penalty, yeah, but the players were reacting and la la la. So clearly that has an effect on these refs. So having a guy like Ciro who is on top of that and who lets the referees know when they fuck up, I just think he should get the armband. I think he should be the captain because he is the player on the pitch who takes responsibility and does that and confronts the referees. Referees clearly can take it from him. He does it respectfully enough that they're not booking him. Mert, on the other hand, now has been booked twice for essentially doing his job as a captain. So I think it's time. Well, I would much rather give that armband to Ciro. And maybe, look, if the goalkeeper is the captain, he can delegate a player to talk to the ref. So maybe Ciro is already that player. We don't know that. Obviously, that's something that's being discussed before the game between the referee and the captain and Mert. So that might be the case already, and which is why Ciro hasn't been getting booked when he does voice his opinion to the referees. But I think also that armband wouldn't look bad on him at all. I think he is somebody who's taken up a leadership role within the team, and he's fantastic. But he hasn't always played well this season. He's got 10 goals in 10 matches now, Sinan. Worth pointing out. 6 goals in the league. He is currently the top scorer in the Super League with 6 goals in 6 games. We have one less game than our rivals. So he could theoretically add a little bit to that and start building a little lead. 3 of those are penalties, though. We have to mention that. It's not like Ciro is red hot and on fire and scoring from all angles. He scored 10 and 10, which is phenomenal. But, he's our penalty taker and we're winning penalties this season. A big difference compared.
I will say though.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Quickly, Kaan. Just in light of what you're saying about his penalty taking, it is a breath of fresh air when if you get a penalty, it's going in at this rate. And I'm sure, knock on wood, whatever. And he's bound to miss one, and it's not like he's gonna lose his job when he does. But like right now, it looks like it'll be pretty hard for him to miss the penalty, or for a keeper to even get a hand on one.
Don't jinx it.
I know. I knocked on wood, man. Dude, you have to admit, man, when he steps up there, and the contact he gets on the ball, it's always just like, even yesterday in the rain, it was like solid, perfectly placed. He sort of feinted, got the keeper going the wrong way. I think he's mixed up where he places them. Like it's safe to say that's a strength of his. And so I just mean in saying that, it almost makes it hard to take credit away from him just because he scored penalties, just because of how he does that.
Of course, you need. I mean, having an expert is very important. I don't think we've had somebody who was that confident in taking penalties since Dembaba. Dembaba was also. You knew when Dembaba stepped up, like, that's a goal.
Yeah.
And with Ciro, you're kind of in the same boat. Obviously, look, he's gonna miss a penalty at some point. That's just gonna.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said I knocked on wood. Like, I'm not jinxing. It's bound to happen, And I'll even take the blame when it does. But he's been phenomenal. No, and again, like, I don't want to do too much repetition, but we did just talk about this last episode. However, it's worth noting that even when Chido's having like not a man of the match sort of performance, his role in linking up play and like bringing the ball down and laying it on a platter for like Rafa to come up on, or Rashica, or whoever else. And I think the only thing we haven't yet talked about, Kaan, before we wrap this up, we've got to talk about Semi very briefly.
Yeah.
And that's been a problem. But even when they've played together, he's laid it on a platter for Semi to make some of those nice mazy runs that he's made. And I think they actually have a nice interchange, Semi and Cheeto. So, Cheeto's been fantastic. And I think the fact that he's leading the league in goals almost does a disservice to how people might analyze him, because they'll think, oh, he's doing his job, he's scoring goals. But it's so much more than that what he's doing for us.
Yeah.
He
I
needs
think
to get credit.
we got that in our group chat today, actually, when Ege said that he thinks Ciro is a bit static. More static than Mario, he said. And obviously, look, Mario Gomez was a phenomenal striker, perhaps the best one we've ever had. But Ciro is everything but a static striker. Like, the amount...
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's the last word for him.
He
I'd
gets
say.
extremely involved, maybe to his own detriment, because sometimes he's outside. You know, he's on the wing and stuff like that when he probably should be in the box to receive the ball. You know, he's everything but a poacher. He is definitely not just a poacher. He's a great team player.
Yeah.
And I think we're lucky. I mean, it's a shame he's 34 years old, because if he was a few years younger, you could see this guy dominate the league for the next coming years. You know, and he might even still do it now. Like, he's 34.
I was gonna say, dude, I don't, there's something. He has that sort of mystical quality. You know, I mean, it doesn't help that when you look at the guy, he looks like he could be 10 years younger. Honestly, he's in really good shape. But I don't know, man. He's like, what he does is such a high IQ, like kind of love of the game, sort of like gritty. You know, he's moving around, but he's not like speedy. You know, he's not overexerting himself. He's not, I don't see him like tearing muscles, ligaments left and right. You know, he's not doing all these shifty agility moves. Yeah, knock on wood, sure. But like it does. His game doesn't require a ton of physicality, but it's so much about, like, just think about that penalty that he earned that he didn't get. Like he let the ball bounce, kind of put his back into the defender so he could kind of guarantee they would bounce a second time, and then shifted his weight so that the defender had no choice essentially but to tackle him if he wanted to make any attempt on the ball. And if he didn't make that attempt on the ball, it's Ciro one-on-one with a goalkeeper who's off balance on the other side of the goal. Like, it was, it's just, he's so clever. Again, like, that's a play that he doesn't have to be, he could be, lacking in terms of physicality, but it's just positioning. It's just that little bit of strength that he's not going to lose anytime soon. I don't know. I feel good about Ciro. Maybe we'll get like a solid 2 or 3 years.
Let's hope so. It would be great.
Knock on wood again.
Would be great if we wouldn't have to change striker every year for a while, but we'll have to wait and see if he can complete his 2-year contract and do so in a good way, and maybe score 25 plus goals in 2 seasons. That would be amazing. Let's get to 25 plus this season first before we start thinking about the second season. Anyway, great win for us. We are 16 out of a potential 18 points now. Gaziantep on the weekend. First we have Frankfurt at home. So then Gaziantep away, and then the international break. It wasn't the greatest performance against Gaziantep, against Kayserispor, but we got the 3 points. We got a clean sheet, 3 goals. Ciro got another 2 in the bag. He's on 10 goals now, like I said already. Before we start taking it out, just a reminder, we're giving away a free copy of EA FC 25 for the Xbox Series X and S, I guess that is the new model. So there's a code to be won. Just leave a comment in the comment section below.
And like and subscribe.
Subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that kind of stuff. Leave a comment, just write Xbox and then some message you want to send. Maybe a comment on the podcast, maybe your thoughts on Ciro, your thoughts on the game, whatever. But mention Xbox in there, because otherwise I need to know that you're actually somebody who wants the game, who has an Xbox. Because we're only giving away an Xbox copy this year. Okay, so if you want the EAFC game, leave a comment in the comment section. Other than that, please go and check out our preview for the Frankfurt game, our team highlight with Kevin Hatchett, the Bundesliga commentator for the English feed of the Bundesliga. He shares his insights on Eintracht Frankfurt, who are a formidable opponent on Thursday. They've made a great start to their Bundesliga season under coach Topmuller. So hopefully we can knock them down a peg. They actually had a disappointing result last week. They were 3-1 up at home in the Europa League against Viktoria Pilsen and gave up their win. The game finished 3-3. So hopefully there's some vulnerabilities there. Kevin Hatchard highlights those. So go and check out that video. That one's under the video section on our YouTube channel. You can go and watch that right now. If you want early access to videos like that, because we recorded that on Friday, the day after the Ajax game, that went straight up on our Patreon. That's at patreon.com/Beşiktaş podcast. If you become a Patreon member for just $1.99 a month, you actually get early access to all the videos we produce. And you also get access to our VIP exclusive podcast, which is at least once a week. We have a VIP exclusive podcast. Last week, there was a 45-minute exclusive with the pre-match things for the Ajax game, like the lineups, the predicted lineups for both teams, the interviews with the Ajax pre-match press conference. I included on that as well. So lots of fun stuff to be had, but mainly it's just to support us, to enable us to keep on providing you with the Black Eagles podcast. This is our 300th episode. We've been doing this since 2018. That's 6 years. Hopefully we can keep doing it for at least another 6 years, but that'll only be possible with your support, either through Patreon or just by subscribing, liking, sharing with your friends, spreading the word. So please, whenever you're watching our podcast on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify or whatever, follow, subscribe, and leave a like, because that really, really helps. That's all my sales talk. Sinan, I'm gonna let you do the last words, because I know you also have to get going soon.
Yeah, indeed. I gotta do pickup, practice, but all right, it was a fun episode. It was a good match, a good week for Beşiktaş fans. If you just forget about whatever happened in the middle of the week, because who even pays attention to the midweek football? We probably don't even belong there if you look at last season. I'm just kidding. No, hopefully we have big things in store this week. I'm pretty hyped. Although, end of the day, it's obviously this coming weekend, where things, are really important, and hopefully we go into the break on a positive note. I think it's probably good timing, all in all, right? All of our new transfers will now have that. We know our full team. They'll know their roles. There'll be some good training in those 2 weeks between matches. So let's hope for the best. And I think it would be remiss for me not to mention this. And it's really important that I do. Let's go Beşiktaş!
Sorry, we didn't get to the live chat comments today. We won't forget to get to them next week, but we do have to get going. See you again on Friday, hopefully with a positive episode after our European outing. And other than that, we'll see you the Monday after, before the international break. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Ortada Bobo. Şimdi Bobo'nun önüne. Bobo aldı. Bobo girdi. Bobo çok babasın. Çok harikasın. Çok güzelsin. Harika.